In the past couple of weeks, a member of the Trump team, this is Jason Miller, started a new social media app called Gettr. And if that sounds a bit like Twitter, it's supposed to, because it also looks identical to Twitter and basically is designed to be Twitter, but for a specific sort of person. And you'll know that when you look at their mission statement. They say that this social media platform is dedicated to fighting cancel culture, promoting common sense, defending free speech, challenging social media monopolies, and creating a true marketplace of ideas, which differentiates itself from things like Parler and other apps like that based on, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out something. But it already has some issues actually, which we'll jump into. The first is that a notorious neo-Nazi has already been suspended from Gettr. So this is Tim Gianet, known as Baked Alaska, who I believe live streamed from inside the Capitol during that attack. He's been suspended. We don't know why yet, but he quickly boasted about his suspension on Gab, the far-right social media platform used by neo-Nazis. So Gettr comes and says what's going to differentiate us from Twitter is that we're not in favor of canceling people. We're in favor of free speech. Wait, no, you're actually crazy and you're dangerous, and any reasonable site is going to try to get rid of you, and so they did too, which undercuts their point by just a little bit. Also, understand that Gettr is apparently bankrolled by fugitive Chinese billionaire Guo Wenguo, a close associate of pardoned Trump strategist Steve Bannon. Apparently provided something like $1 million. But Miller says that it was just seed money, it's not direct investment. I'm not rich enough to know the distinction between those two things, but he believes that there's distance between them. And in any event, there are other issues too. One of the bigger ones, by the way, and I did not see this coming when the app was announced, is that despite this being launched by Jason Miller, one of the key Trump guys, Trump is not on it. He has not started an account. We'll get into that a little bit more, but like the dude isn't on any accounts. You'd think he'd be desperate to get on this one, but apparently he's not that interested, which is a little bit cold towards Jason Miller. You're supposed to support your bro's work, man. But anyway, what do you think about this? Do you think it'd have any chance of becoming the next big thing?
So before I get to the Gettr jokes, which are gonna be fun, so let's address the two things that John mentioned there. First of all, he put in some seed funding, but he doesn't have ownership. That's not how it works. Okay, nobody puts in seed funding and then doesn't get equity. They're like, oh, I was just giving it for charity. You just do anything you like with it. No, I mean, look, the right-wing billionaires sometimes give just flat out money to like Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager, et cetera.
Could be that.
Yeah, so it could be like, hey, yeah, I'm giving this to you for propaganda, and then here's the things that I want you to do to promote my businesses, my anti-Chinese government agenda, et cetera. Yeah, that makes sense. But if you do seed funding, that actually means something, and it definitely means you get equity, okay? And now as to Trump, we come back to that same equity question. So there's a story or a tweet from, I think it was Bloomberg, and they explained that no, Trump is not going to be on it. And they made a vague allusion, which I'll explain to you, which was that they're like, he did not get any financial consideration, right? Trump, when he talks to any of these platforms, the Gabs, the Gabbers, the Grabbers, the Getters, and what all these things, right?
He likes Grabber.
The Gators, whatever. The first conversation he has is it, oh, how good is your platform? How is it on free speech? No, it ain't got nothing to do with free. It's not exact opposite. He's like, how much am I getting? Okay, if I'm gonna go on a platform, a lot of people are gonna come with me, which by the way is true, right? So I want a certain percentage of the income that comes from that platform. So apparently it was too rich for their blood and Jason Miller didn't pay him. So Trump's like, no, I'm not gonna do anything unless I get paid. Did you not know me the whole time that you worked for me, you idiot? So that's why he's not on there.
Grr, I just really want a fine social media platform where I can be racist and say bigoted things. Is that so much to ask for in 2021? You ban me from Twitter, you take away my Parler, and now I can't even get her done. Cenk, I'm gonna leave the Gettr jokes to you because you probably have much better ones than I do. That's my one and only, and I've emptied the clip. So I think this is kind of complicated in ways that people might not expect. I am going to start with us, and by us, I'm referring to those folks who identify themselves as progressives. And the reason I say that is I think it's worth considering, did and have we with cancel culture fertilized the ground that has created this space? Now, I think that the people who oftentimes call themselves victims of cancel culture are ones who actually deserve it, because if you can't express a difference of opinion without threatening someone else's humanity, then maybe you do deserve to be canceled. But at the same time, I think that there is a very thin line in current society around who gets to say what. And I think that it's actually a more dangerous space than we realize. Having said that, I don't feel any ounce of, so that's the one thing that I think as progressives, we do have to be mindful of. I think that we sort of like indiscriminately wave the cancel culture weapon around in ways that I think we should be a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more precise about, because in my opinion, it fertilized the ground for so much of the conversation that is taking place now that is anti-critical race theory, that is anti-actual factual history, that is anti sort of having important and reasoned conversations, because we have been so aggressive about cancel culture that it has just sort of turned mainstream, central, moderate folks off. Mm-hmm. So that's on us in one way. I do think that we should be mindful of that. At large, I think that it is a very interesting space that would not exist post if January 6th had not happened. Had January 6th had not happened, Parler would still exist. This whole notion of like, well, we're banning people who are neo-Nazis because we think they're dangerous would not exist, because there is a level of liability that any lawyer would look at and say, listen, if somebody does something and is able to sort of reasonably connect this back to your platform, you're gonna have a problem. And so I don't necessarily see the idea of we're banning a neo-Nazi as a function of these are our values and our values are, to support different people's humanities. I don't think that's the issue at all. I think people's ideologies, when they are problematic, they go to where they think they're going to be expressed, to be able to express them, where they think it's a safe space. And it's not an accident that Baked Alaska felt like this was a safe space. I think that with the conversation we're having about January 6th, with the conversation that we're having about the alt-right, and then holding them accountable for foreseeable actions that can occur, they probably looked at that and said, we don't want any parts of this. Let's be on the safe side, not the right side, the safe side. And let's, sort of err on the side of caution and get them up out of here. But that's my take. And I think that the dog that progressives have in this fight, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm loving watching this sort of attempt to create a safe space for racists go bad. But the dog that we do have in this fight as progressives is to consider, how are we navigating the space that created a need for this? And are we doing it in a way that's smart and that's like intentional and directed?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I think, by the way, we don't have time to engage in it right now, but I might have found an area for future disagreement between us on some of this, but mostly about the conversation about cancel culture that I see in other media. Bearing in mind, of course, and with a grain of salt, like in Michael Wolff's upcoming book, he says that Trump never joining Parler wasn't just about money. He was offered 40% of the revenue. It was that he required Parler to allow him to ban people who criticized him, and they said no. So Donald Trump, who claims that he's a victim of cancel culture from being banned from Twitter, wanted free reign to ban people who made fun of him and wasn't given that power.
I believe there's a word for that.
There is actually,
and in the English language, I believe that word is called bitch.
Yeah, and also, and like, having 6 months of right wingers on Fox News tell me that me as a leftist, I've got some issue with being too censorious because of cancel culture. And then, Gwen Berry turned her back on the flag, end her career, get her out of there for her peaceful protest. Yeah. They don't mean it, it's all fake. And that's why I don't want to contribute to a narrative that I think is being weaponized against the left that is truly a phenomenon that everyone engages in some cases and not others. In any event, I don't think we have time for the video. But Jason Miller would really like Trump to join up. It doesn't look like that's gonna happen. This is sort of a ridiculous platform. You can take a look at the screenshots. It is modeled exactly after Twitter. It looks exactly after Twitter. In fact, people's follower numbers add their Twitter follower numbers to it, which is insane. I didn't even know how you can do that, but that's what they're doing. Those are two different apps. That's Twitter and Gettr, and it's identical.
Yeah, it's
a great product there.
They're so lazy. This reminds me of Trump's platform/blog, which lasted for like a month, right? And then he was
almost a month.
Yeah, and he's like, oh well, it turns out I suck at this. Yeah, really, I couldn't see that coming with 6 bankruptcies. That you wouldn't know how to run a platform, and neither does any of his lackeys, of course. But look, I actually generally agree with Charles on cancel culture. I think that that's a very nuanced issue. We'll take a whole different show to discuss, but it does sometimes run amok on both sides. So it's not that I disagree with John. What he says about the right wing is also true, right? But I do disagree with Charles that I would have better jokes. There's no chance of that. Okay, so but let me give you the jokes of others though. So somebody did say, Charles, that once that Gettr goes bankrupt, they reserve the right to use the headline "Gettr done." So you were on it, and Dave Weigel said, "Gettr, I don't even know her." Which I found to be funny. Unpainted Melody said, Gettr, why? Was Grifter taken? I liked all those. But there is, there was a great little trolling that I'll get to in 1 second. But there is a really interesting question, another interesting question here that Charles alluded to. So they're not banning racists, but they are banning neo-Nazis. Where's that line? Man, that's a tough line to draw, right? Racist, yeah, come on in. Oh, no, you're neo-Nazi. No, sorry. But you're also racist. Oh, that's a super tough one. Okay, so, and then the QAnon folks were really upset because they apparently had porn on there. Why? Because trolls instantly came in with it, and bad words. And QAnon people are like, you're letting people say naughty words? I thought this was just for racists. How is that not hilarious, right? And every one of these right-wing platforms has the same exact problem. They're like, where do we draw the line? Because, I mean, if we say you can really have free speech, we're gonna have people advocating for violence and horrible things and instantly, right? And that's why there are lines, because everybody has to draw the line somewhere. So all of this is totally absurd. And again, for some of the reasons that Charles stated, you have to draw legal lines at a minimum. Otherwise, you're gonna be in massive, massive trouble. Finally, the trolls on there have been the best part of Gettr. I don't mean to drive you to it just to look at the trolls, but they had the top performing post as of when we went on live here was Cameron Milley. She was getting the most subscribers because it was an attractive woman who had like her top almost off. So of course, right wingers are like, yes, follow, me like, right? Without knowing what it is at all. And then when you click on, it has a picture of Joe Biden. And
that's free speech, baby.
That's right, and it just has lists Trump's lies about the election. And so, now that's the top followed account on Gettr.
Nice.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.